Hi, welcome to Everyone Can Jam. This is a place where everyone can learn to play music. And yes, I know not everyone agrees with me and not everyone believes that's true, but I'm finding that it is true. I've made it my life's work, and I've learned a lot of fun things about how to explain the fact that for most of human history, everyone was a musician, and there's places still where everyone is a musician. And I began wondering about, what happened and what's changed. And I've learned a lot of things that help me to be a better music teacher. And one of the ways I like to explain this is called Raised by Wolves. We know that everyone is born with the ability to learn to play music. Brain researchers have shown this to be true. And they say we are born with the ability, well, what they say is that musical expression is basic human expression, just like speech is a basic human expression. And everyone can learn to speak. I mean, barring like severe disabilities, everyone learns to speak. Even people with severe cognitive disabilities or intellectual delays, they still learn how to speak. And if we spend a little time thinking about how complex it is to speak, and actually how musical it is to speak, the more we realize when we speak, we go up, we go down, there's sort of a rhythm, da da da. And that's actually another topic about how everyone can learn to play music. But my point here is if we know that everyone is born with the ability to learn to speak. Almost every single human develops the ability to speak, even those with some pretty severe disabilities. But if you were raised by wolves, and some human beings actually have been raised by wolves, and this is sad, and I don't mean to make light of it, but if you were raised by wolves and you were discovered by the humans when you were 15 years old or 20 years old, you would not be speaking any human language. You'd be pretty good at wolf language, but you would not be able to speak English or French or Spanish or Chinese. But this does not mean that you were not born with the ability to learn to speak. And it does not mean that you're not talented at speaking. It just means that there's certain experiences you did not have which help you develop speech. And music is something that develops. This is one of the things, if we don't realize how much music develops with a very basic skill, and then we need to develop another skill that builds on that skill, and another skill that builds on that skill. And if we don't develop the basic skills, we're not going to be able to build on them. A lot of our music education tries to build on skills that aren't there. And if we just kind of go back and work on those basic skills, it helps a lot to think of it, to compare it to a child learning to speak. When a child is 18 months or 2 years old and they're just starting to say words like, say you want a cookie, and you're 18 months old, and you reach up at the counter and you look at your mother longingly, and you can't say cookie yet, so you just skip part of it. You say k, k, k. And she knows what you mean, and she gives you a cookie, and you had some success, and that was considered progress. And it's interesting how most humans understand how to help another human learn to speak. Most humans would not say to the 2-year-old child, you can't have a cookie until you say a full sentence. You got to say it right. Or you have to learn to read before you're allowed to speak. Or that's, we wouldn't do it that way. So it helps a lot when we think about learning musical skill and musical expression if we compare it to the way that we would learn to speak. That helps us to make smart decisions about how to design music education and how to understand our progress And just like there's no limit to how complex musical expression can be, I'm finding there's no limit to how much we can break it down into smaller pieces and focus on one thing instead of focusing on 6 or 7 things. A lot of times with beginning students, they're just asked to do too much all at once. And if we can just kind of back up and make it a little bit more like speech, where, we're not expected to say, "Mother, may I please have a cookie?" We just get little bits and pieces of it, and then we build on that. So, if you'd like to learn more about how everyone can learn to play music, or if you would just like to participate, whether you're a teacher or a student or a musical lover, Everyone Can Jam is the name of the online community which I host, and we have some very accomplished musicians, songwriters, performers, lots of absolute beginners, and we have some prominent educators. And my dream for Everyone Can Jam is that we work together and we have discussions about things like this, and we learn from each other about how we can create resources and cultural things that support people in learning to have musical expression. Because musical expression, as I said earlier, is basic human behavior. Just think for a minute about what that means. Basic human behavior. When we are denied something that is basic human behavior, it affects us very deeply. And some people long for music more than others, and some people are bereft because they don't have their musical expression and they need it. So if you'd like to join the Everyone Can Jam community, please go to www.everyonecanjam.com and sign up for my email list. See you there.